What is the meaning of the title of the 1984 hip-hop anthem film, Beat Street? Why are Puma sneakers so prominently featured in the movie? What was the major event in 1977 that jump-started the hip-hop music genre? These and more questions will be answered on
Back Look Cinema, the podcast.
I never knew aught till I saw your face, and there'll never be one to take your place. Cause each and every time you touch a spray paint can, Michelangelo's soul controls your hand. And serenades of blue and red, and the beauty of the rainbow fills your head. Crescendo colors, hang untuned, man, why death to die so soon? Hello, my name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z to the O for those of you outside of the U.S. Welcome back, friends. This is the 212th episode of Back Look Cinema, the podcast, where we take a look back at the movies of yesteryear, especially the movies of the latter half of the last millennium. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell your entire break-in crew, your tagging gang, and your favorite disc jockey about Back Look Cinema. First, let's address the obvious. I'm late. An entire week late. I missed the entire first week of February. So a lot of things went on. A lot of changes at the job and at work. So sometimes that could cause a disruption in the schedule for the show. It happens sometimes. And I really wanted to put all 4 movies that I wanted to profile regarding Black history and culture in the month of February. But sometimes the best laid plans can go to pot. So I'm still doing 4 movies. It's just that the last movie is going to be in March. So in this show, I want to talk about, or at least I want to spend a little bit of time talking about my personal experience with hip hop. So I encountered hip hop in the late 1970s or the early 80s, and I enjoyed the genre, but I really wasn't like into the music like a true fan would be. Like, there were songs that I like and I listened to them and I would bop my head to them. I would, really be into it, but I didn't know the names of the people or the songs that they sang. I just knew when they come on that I enjoyed them, but I did not know I didn't dig deeper into the music. Then the underground film classic Beat Street came along, and that began my journey, or at least it enhanced my journey into rap and hip hop. From Genius.com, a contributor named Old School Flavor wrote that Beat Street means the beats from the streets, the hip hop music that was also a lesson. So I had never actually wondered what the name of the movie meant. And that was a constant theme. Like, the name of the movie is like kind of like all over the movie. There's like graffiti works that says Beat Street. There is a breakdancing crew called Beat Street. The end of the song, the movie at the end, the song, I'm sorry, I'm saying it's all wrong. The song at the end of the movie is called Beat Street Breakdown. So it's very much in the movie, but I never even thought about what it might mean. At least, I guess I conceptualized that it must be talking about the music, but I never even thought about it until I read the explanation on Genius.com. In the early 1970s in New York City, especially in the Bronx, there was a new style of party music being pioneered by DJs. At these parties, MCs would encourage and move the crowd along with their amazing charisma and their gift of gab, often rhyming their messages to the audiences in a sing-song melodic style of speech to the musical beat known as rapping. Dancers would show off some fantastic, dangerous, and acrobatic dance moves. Their favorite part of the song to display these moves were during the instrumental breaks in the song. DJ Kool Herc was one of the earliest artists of this burgeoning music style. And during a party in 1973, he had started extending the instrumental breaks of popular disco songs, and his technique allowed these dancers to show off their stuff for as long as they wanted. Because the dancers preferred to dance specifically during these instrumental breaks, they became known as break dancers, also known as b-boys and b-girls. The music might have stayed local, as there are only a handful of DJs with the expensive equipment that could produce this unique sound. An act of God in 1977 changed the course of history. With several lightning strikes, New York City was plunged into the blackout of 1977. Approximately 16,000 stores were looted during this massive power outage, and suddenly there were a whole lot more aspiring DJs who miraculously came across very pricey turntables, mixers, speakers, mics, headphones, and other expensive equipment that a DJ might need to set this party off right. It was this chance lightning strike that energized this tiny genre, causing it to expand over the entirety of New York City, spread up and down the East Coast, while simultaneously spreading to the West Coast and many of the cities around the Midwest. While breakdancing isn't as ubiquitous as it once was, the music that inspired it continued to grow, blossom, and change. MCs continued to craft ever more thoughtful, complex, and meaningful messages and stories into their rhymes. Musicians began writing original music specifically for rappers instead of sampling popular songs. Hip-hop or rap music is now one of the most popular genres of all time and is created and celebrated all around the world. The blackout was one of the first sparks of the hip-hop movement, and soon came movies like Style Wars, Breakin', and Crush Groove that all did their work to expand the genre. I'd like to talk about one of my favorite films from that era, Beat Street from 1984. So let's check it out in the opening credits. Kenny Kirkland, Double K to his friends, just wants to create beautiful music using his modest record collection, his turntable, and his mixer to blend together a sound that was unique and mesmerizing. His friend Ramon, or Ramo, has a passion for painting that would travel from one end of New York City to the other on the outside of one of the many NYCTA subway cars. Charlie has a mind of a hustler who could make deals where no deals seemed possible. Kenny's little brother, Lee, wants to show everyone that he's the baddest breakdancer in Brooklyn. The stories of these young men twist and converge as they support each other through the adversity that was common to the young Black and Puerto Rican men living in the Bronx in the mid-1980s while trying to make their own dreams come true. Beat Street was released June 8, 1984, produced by Orion Pictures. It grossed $16 million in the US and Canada on a reported budget of $9.5 million. So, as you can see, it's not great. It's not exactly what one would call a box office bonanza, but I remember it being very popular with my friends and family, and I'm pretty sure that it made its money back on the VHS rentals. Because back in those days, VHS was the way to go. If you adjust those numbers for inflation, it would mean that had the movie been made today, then it would have grossed $49 million in the US and Canada, and the budget would have been $29 million. This movie was starring Raydon Chong as Tracy Carlson, and I just found out that she's the daughter of Tommy Chong. Either I just found out or I just rediscovered. But you may have seen her in movies like Commando, which we covered in episode 10, or The Color Purple, which we also covered in an earlier episode, or Quest of Fire, or Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. I remember Raydon Chong was of special interest to me and my friends. Like, we really liked her. It was like for us in my circle of friends, before there was Halle Berry, there was Ray Don Chong. Up next is Guy Davis. He plays Kenny Double K Kirkland, and you may have seen him in Final or Death by Temptation, or more recently, The Rhythm and the Blues 2024. And he's more of a TV actor, but he does not exactly have an expansive on-screen acting appearance. John Chardiet played Ramo Franco. It may be Jean Chardiet or it might be John Charday. I'm not exactly sure. In any case, you might have seen him in Money Talks or Neander Jin, the return of the Neanderthal man. I wasn't sure if I was going to pronounce it Neanderthal or Neanderthal. I had not heard. See, here's the thing. When I first heard the word, it was always pronounced Neanderthal, the TH sound at the end. And then more recently, I heard Neanderthal. So now every time I go to read this word, I can't decide which pronunciation I'm going to use. In any case, John Charday or John Chardet, he doesn't have a whole bunch of movie appearances. He has a robust TV appearance, though. Leon W. Grant plays Charlie Wilson. And when I say Charlie, I mean his name is spelled Chollie. It's Charlie, not Charlie. In any case, you may have seen Leon in The Brother from Another Planet or The Wanderers, but I remember him from a different show. He looked so familiar when I first saw him, and I could not place him. And then, when I first saw him, he had his hat on. So I saw Leon W. Grant with his hat on, and I was like, where do I know him? Why is he so familiar? And then he took his hat off. He was wearing a Kango in a movie. He took the hat off, and I was like, oh my God, I know him. He was on 3-2-1 Contact. It was a TV show that I used to watch. I preferred 3-2-1 Contact over Sesame Street or The Electric Company. 3-2-1 Contact is something I love because it was focused on science and discovery, and it was like STEM before STEM. And it was a fantastic show that talked about things that I was really interested in. So I remember him as Mark on that show. Moving right along, we have Sandra Santiago. She plays Carmen Corrado. And you might have seen her in Don Q, The House That Jack Built. And she spent a lot of time on Miami Vice. I think she was a series regular. And the thing about this is that Sandra, of all the actors that were in this movie, she was really putting her heart into it. It was almost as if she was in a different movie. She was taking it serious, right? I felt like that compared to everybody else felt like they were in a high school play or a little bit better than a high school play. But Sandra was dramatic, and I appreciated the effort that she put in to put some gravity in this movie. Robert Taylor played Lee Kirkland, and he has very little acting credits to his name. So he's been in Avenging Force and Some Mother's Son and not much else. So acting probably is not something that he pursued very much of in his life. And then the incomparable Mary Alice. She plays Cor Kirkland, and you might have seen her or remember her from The Matrix, Revelations, and Awakening. Sean Elliott plays Domingo, and you might remember him from Do the Right Thing and The Deadpool. And there were a lot of special appearances and some cameos, and I'm going to cover those when I talk about the soundtrack. But when they made this movie, they made sure to get a lot of the artists that were responsible for the genre that they were profiling in this project. This movie was directed by Stan Lathan, and you might have seen some of his other works, including The House Divided, Denmark Vesey's Rebellion. Go Tell It on the Mountain. The Cotton Club. Save the Children. He's also responsible for directing a lot of episodes of a TV show that I like called Rock. That was fascinating. I was sad to see it go. And he directed a lot of comedy specials. This movie was written by Stephen Hagar, Andrew Davis, and David Gilbert. Hagar was the journalist who created an underground newspaper called The Tin Whistle in 1968. He also wrote an original story called The Perfect Beat. He sold that story to Harry Belafonte, and Harry Belafonte produced Beat Street with that story. Not a lot of Hagar's original characters from The Perfect Beat survived into the movie Beat Street, but this is still his story. Andrew Davis is better known as a director. You might have seen some of his work. Some of his work I have profiled on the podcast. Works like The Fugitive or Under Siege. And he also directed Holes. But as far as screenwriting or story credits, you can look at Big Steel, Little Steel, Above the Law, Stony Island, and Paco. The last credited writer is David Gilbert, and the only other credit that he has is a TV movie called The Godfather Family, A Look Inside. And that's about it. And so these three came together, probably with a bunch of other writers, and crafted this Hollywood classic. The music was composed by Harry Belafonte and Webster Lewis. I think they handled like two different sides of the music. I think Harry Belafonte handled more of the hip-hop music that was featured in the film, and that Webster Lewis handled the score of the movie. You all know Harry Belafonte as a musician, an actor, and a producer. And he worked with a producer named Arthur Baker, who was in the music department for this movie. And they worked together to create the music that represented the development of the early hip-hop culture in New York City. And Arthur Baker worked with Afrika Bambaataa, Planet Patrol, and some other early hip-hop acts. As for Webster Lewis, some of the movies that he's composed for were The Hearse, My Tutor, Body and Soul, and again, A House Divided, Denmark Vesey's Rebellion. I have to tell you, I haven't heard of any of these movies. I don't think that these movies are exactly hailed as great works of American art, but I'm probably mistaken. And now let's talk about the soundtrack. The soundtrack is expansive. It is a very musical movie, and it has there was some music that very much left an impression on me. And the main song that left an impression on me was Beat Street Breakdown. It's basically the theme song of the movie. It was composed by Melly Mel, Reggie Griffin, and Sylvia Robinson. It was performed by Melly Mel and the Furious Five. There's also The Son of Beat Street, and that was developed and performed by Jazzy J. He also had an appearance. Like Melly Mel and the Furious Five were in the movie. Jazzy J were in the movie. There's a song called Santa's Rap. It was written by Kumo D, Kevin Keaton, and Lamar Hill. And it was performed by the Treacherous Three, who had an appearance in the movie. And it was featuring Dougie Fresh, who did his beatboxes. Probably the first time that I saw Dougie Fresh. And probably the first time that I saw somebody beatbox. Also, Kumo D was a member of the Treacherous Three, and it was one of the rare occasions that you would see Kumo D without his glasses. He plays Santa Claus in the Santa Rap, and there he is, young kid without his glasses. I used to think that he wore shades because he was cockeyed or something, that there was something wrong with his eyes, but no, he has regular eyes. I didn't even recognize him. It was only when I'm going through the credits at the end of the movie that I was notified that was Kool Moe Dee. There's a song called Frantic Situation. It was composed by Arthur Baker and Afrika Bambaataa, and it was performed by Afrika Bambaataa and Soul Sonic Force, who also made an appearance. Nothing's Gonna Come Easy, composed by Arthur Baker, Chris Lord Alge, and Tina B, performed by Tina B in her appearance. The song Us Girls, composed by Lisa Lee Sharrock and Debbie D, and Ross Levinson, performed by Us Girls. And they were like the first artist that makes an appearance in the movie. And this was surprising because I was not cognizant, for some reason, like it's been a long time since I watched this movie. And so I forgot the Us Girls appearance. So as I'm watching it, I'm re-shocked. I'm shocked all over again because I didn't realize that there was much of any women presence in the hip hop that early in the game, but there they were, proving me wrong. I know that hip hop I don't know if it started off misogynistic, but it developed a sort of a kind of hostility against women and women. And so when a woman got into rapping or hip hop, when it got anywhere near the genre, they definitely had to be twice as good or twice as committed than their male counterparts, because it was hard for them to get into the music, or it was hard not get into the music, but it was hard for them to get into the industry. It's hard for them to get people to listen to them. So seeing Us Girls in the beginning of the movie, that was surprising to me. You also have Baptize the Beat, written by David Frank and Mike Murphy. It was performed by The System. And there was also an appearance by Brenda K. Starr. And there were a lot of dance crews in the movie. So you had, and when I mean dance crews, I mean break dancing crews. So obviously you had the actors, but then the actors were supported by actual break dancers, because they're not going to train an actor how to break dance well. That wasn't happening. So you had the Rocksteady crew, the New York City Breakers, the Magnificent Force, and the Magnificent Duo. It also featured some graffiti artists, and their names are Phase 2, Futura 2000, and Dondi. So that's it for the opening credits. And I have just one major announcement. And that announcement is that I am changing the email address that I have for the show. So originally it was fanmail@Backlick.Cinema. The crazy thing about having that email is that I would always forget the name of the email. And the other crazy thing about it is that it was always intended to be a placeholder. Like, I couldn't think of a name that I could give the email. And there was a podcast I listened to, and they had, I forgot the name of it already, but they had their email address was fan mail. So I was like, well, let me do that, fan mail for Backlick Cinema. But I don't feel like I have fans. I do feel like I have friends. And so I've decided to change the email to friends@Backlick Cinema. I thought I was going to get cute and call it something like film fans or fans of films or something like that. But I decided that simpler would be better. Not something that's overly complicated to spell. Not something where you have to wonder if there's a space or underscore in the email address. Just something simple and direct, and really express how I feel about the people who listen to this podcast. I want my friends to listen to it. And when I mean friends, I mean anybody who's listening to it right now. And so the new email address is friends@Backlick Cinema. And speaking of friends, we have a friend who left a comment from episode 211, Akira. And that friend is @Mark Crespo. He left or it's at Mark Crespo -M2C, and he left a comment on YouTube, and his comment was, "Awesome episode, smiley face heart." Thank you, at Mark Crespo -M2C. I really appreciate that. I worked really hard on that episode. I hope everybody else enjoyed it too. And now that we've talked about the announcements, let's go and see what our favorite parts of Beat Street was. Along with the favorite parts, I want to peruse the themes of this movie, kind of suss out any possible themes that this movie might have. So this movie was solely focused on the emerging hip hop culture, and that includes a wide variety of things. It includes the fashion, it includes dance, it includes a way of incorporating different music styles. It includes, obviously, the hip hop and rapping and the work that the DJ does that really kind of ties a lot of these things together. It drew inspiration from movies like Wild Style, and there were the other movies that had kind of an influence on the culture or kind of displayed the culture were movies like Crush Groove, Style Wars, and Scratch. Of all of these movies, I've only seen Crush Groove. I remember that movie, and that was a similar movie that starred some early rap artists. I think a theme that can be established in a movie is perseverance, like going through the hardship. Don't allow the harshness of life beat you down. See your way through the adversity. And this especially goes through for minorities. And when you have systematic adversity, it's almost like the system is geared towards slowing your progress or tearing you down. And only the most dedicated can go through and achieve some manner of success, or at least some manner of existence. So you're always going to have things that are going to slow your progress. And this movie kind of talks about how you persist through all the things that come against you. Also, the people who are in this movie, they are all artists, and they're all very passionate about their art. And you should know that your art is important, and you should relentlessly pursue your passion, but not at the expense of supporting your family. So there's a theme about an artist wanting to display his work or wanting to pursue their art, but there's always the underlying theme of, well, you got to take care of home first. It's like you just can't just go out and be an artist 100% of the time. It's like you got to take care of your life first. So like the little brother wants to hang out with his older brother and his brother's friends, but you just can't go out and play with your older brother. You have to do your homework. Or you have an artist who wants to go and he wants to create his art, but it's like nobody's paying you for that art. So if they're not paying you for that art, then you've got to go and you've got to do something where somebody can pay you so you can support your family. And then you got to support your child. You got to support your girlfriend. You can't just go out and just do a bunch of artwork and not take care of home. So yes, pursue your art, pursue your passion, but not at the expense of not supporting your family. Also, I didn't realize that this was a Christmas movie. Like, it takes place around Christmas. It has a Christmas rap song. There's a dude dressed as Santa Claus. I mean, it doesn't go all the way of having Christmas trees and people exchanging presents, but if Die Hard can be a Christmas movie, then Beat Street is definitely a Christmas movie, and I did not realize it. And I didn't realize that a lot of people, or there are a lot of places that consider this a musical. I still can't cross that bridge in thinking about this movie as a musical. Now I want to go over some of my favorite parts of this movie, and hopefully, as I go over these, I'll hit upon some of the things that you consider your favorite. So let's talk about some of our favorite parts about Beat Street. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite parts, and hopefully I can hit upon your favorite parts, and we can have a nice old time. So one of the things I want to acknowledge is that the story is at the same time complex and threadbare. So that is something I want to freely acknowledge. It's not exactly a well-written script. It could have been tightened up a little bit, and maybe the movie could have been a little bit longer. It's only about an hour 15 or hour and 20 minutes or something like that. And for all of the things that they wanted to put in the story, it definitely needed something for the characters to breathe a little bit. And then some of the messaging was a little bit confusing, like not well articulated. So that was one of the things that I had to deal with. But the things that really impressed me when I was younger was the music. So the music is definitely one of my favorite parts of the movie. To this day, the beginning lyrics of Beat Street Breakdown, it sticks in my head. It was like one of the things that really stuck with me like glue. Beat Street is the name of the beat. I mean, I absolutely enjoyed that. I never memorized the entire song. I never knew the whole song. Back in those days, if I wanted to memorize a song, I would have to have a tape. And then I would have to listen to that tape over and over and over again, like basically writing down the lyrics as I listened to the tape, and then, repeating the lyrics as the song played a lot. Yeah, I basically had to obsess over it. And I did obsess over some songs, but that just wasn't one of the songs. But I guess it was obsessive enough where it stuck with me all the way to my adulthood. Also, I really enjoyed the breakdancing. They spent a serious amount of time on the breakdancing. They really wanted to make sure that they got all of the culture in there. So they had a couple of breakdancing battles, and it just took me to a time where it's like, if you had a crew and you encountered another crew and y'all had problems, y'all would solve it by dancing. You throw a piece of cardboard down, a portion of a cardboard box, and then you start doing a backspin or flips or whatever. The thing that got me was like the stamina and the endurance and the power that you had to do these dances. And it felt dangerous because a lot of the backflips is like, they would be standing and they would flip and they would land on their butts on purpose. Like it wasn't an accident. They meant to land on their butts, and that looks painful. It's essentially a wrestling move because there are a lot of moves in wrestling where you land on your butt. And that it wrecks your body. It's not something that you can continue to do. And wrestlers do it for like years and years. Like they spend decades doing that, and their bodies are wrecked because of it. But yeah, I've always liked breakdancing. It looks like magic, and all the related dances like Electric Boogaloo and I think there's one called Pop and Rock, and I don't know the names of these dances. I couldn't honestly distinguish the difference between breakdancing and Electric Boogaloo. But what I recognize from breakdance is that it's mostly time spent on the floor. At any rate, it was, I remember there were kids in my neighborhood and they would breakdance, and I would try to learn at least some of the moves and not get it. Dancing is not one of the things that I could do. And then there were like talent shows where kids would breakdance. It was just, breakdancing was an absolute phenomenon that, it's like everywhere you go, there's somebody trying to do it. And the breakdancing in the movie was no exception. It was no exception. It was exceptional. And so I really liked that. Maybe they spent too much time showing the breakdancing, but in the same rate, they probably spent too much time on the song, but it doesn't matter because that's what I liked about it. I like the characters in the movie. So you had the main characters. There's Kenny, Lee and their friends Charlie and Ramo. I thought that they did a lot of work in trying to develop these characters and their disparate obsessions. Like you clearly knew what they wanted and what they were after. And I thought it was interesting that all of most of the main characters were artists. So you had people who danced or produced music or composed music. So like Rae Dong Chong's character, she was a composer and she composed music. And then there's even a part in the movie where Kenny Kirkland, Double K to his friends, he discovered that one of the songs that he was using in his DJ music or in his composing his DJ music was one of the songs that Rae Dong Chong's character composed. Rae Dong Chong played a character named Tracy. Tracy and Kenny, they start to fall for each other, but it was kind of interesting because I think Kenny kind of sees Tracy's first and he's immediately like smitten by her. And he's eyeballing her, but he's not actually trying to talk to her yet. You can see he's basically eyeballing her. And then at this club scene, you see Tracy and she's talking to Kenny's brother, Lee. This is his little brother. And it's like, he had just been breakdancing. He and his crew, I think his crew was called Beat Street, the Beat Street Breakers or something like that. And so he and his crew had danced against his other crew. And I'm not exactly sure who won the contest. I guess it was Lee's gang that won that breakdancing contest. And after the contest, Tracy goes over to Lee and they exchange information. Kenny gets weirdly jealous about it, right? He's like, why is she talking to my little brother? Why isn't she talking to me? And so they go through kind of like a complex relationship that I really wish was better written. So the thing is that the reason that Tracy exchanged information with Lee is because she liked his dancing and then she wanted Lee to demonstrate breakdancing to her crew. So she's a composer and she works with a dance troupe. She wanted Lee to demonstrate breakdancing, but Lee was under the impression that he was going to be part of the troupe. Like he was going to be welcomed within their midst and they're supposed to be filming him. But that's not why he was there. So Kenny and Lee and I think Ramo and like I think Charlie was there too. So they go over to the dance studio and they basically want to see what they want with Lee. And they film Lee as he's doing some of his breakdancing move and everybody's thoroughly impressed and whatnot. And these are like upper class type people. And they're all very entertained and impressed with Lee's dancing. And Lee is wondering like, all right, so when will I be on TV? Is this going to be on TV? When are we going to be on TV? And Tracy was like, that's not why you were here. You was basically, she said that I never told you that you were going to be on TV. I was very clear on why we were bringing you here. And it's like when Tracy met Lee, they didn't show you the conversation that they were having. So the audience don't know what was said or what was exchanged between them. So it's only when you get to the dance studio where she explains that, and Lee is a little kid. So whatever she said, he did not fully comprehend. And she wasn't trying to mislead him, but it's up to the audience to decide whether you believe her or not. And there's nothing particularly deceitful in what Tracy was saying. So as far as we're basically left with kind of believing what Tracy was saying is that she wasn't trying to lead him on. She was basically having Lee there to demonstrate breakdancing. And this kind of upsets Kenny because he thinks that you just want to, because like I said, these are some upper class people dealing with, these dancers are not break dancers. These dancers are they're like ballet dancing or they're like classical dancing. They're classically trained dancers. So he thinks that they're just putting his brother on display for their entertainment, and then not really taking him seriously, right? You're just a street kid here to entertain us for a minute, and then you are dismissed. And that's how Kenny is looking at it. I don't think that was what Tracy's intention was, but that's how Kenny is receiving it. And now Kenny doesn't like her anymore. Like, she doesn't realize that Kenny done hooked up with her and broken up with her in the space of a day. Like, and later on in the movie, Tracy has to go over and she wants to apologize to Kenny, and then she wants to make amends, and in doing so, when they're in actually she wants to apologize to Lee personally, but at the time Lee wasn't available at the house, so she ends up talking to Kenny, and they kind of made up over music. Like, Tracy's interested in the music that Kenny has, interested in how he mixes music with his DJ equipment. And Kenny obliges, and he shows her how he makes his music. So they bond over that. And so Kenny basically made up with her. So without them not really having met, it seems like Kenny has gotten together with, broken up with, and then gotten back together with Tracy without her ever really knowing that they were together in the first place. But they're falling for each other, and they develop into a relationship. But it's kind of rocky because Kenny gets funny every once in a while. And then there's also this movie has like several storylines. So there's the relationship between Kenny and Tracy, and Kenny trying to be a DJ. And then there is Charlie. Charlie's story really isn't fully developed. It's like Charlie's story is basically to support Kenny, because Charlie is making deals, and some of the deals he make benefit Kenny. So Charlie's character is basically there to support Kenny. You have Ramon. He has a completely different storyline. And so his character, he's got a girlfriend, he's got a newborn son, and he's got like his girlfriend's mom basically hates him because his girlfriend's mom, she basically sees him as a deadbeat dad. He doesn't have the money to support a baby. And like, you kind of, as an adult, you can kind of see it from her perspective, because your baby done had a baby, and now your job is to support your daughter and your granddaughter. And it's kind of a pain, right? And babies are very expensive, and the father is not earning any money. Like, Ramon doesn't have a job. Ramon is a graffiti artist, and that's all he thinks about doing. It's, and his friends support him. He's validated in spray painting buildings and subway cars. And he has this dream of spray painting this brand new subway car that's completely white. So he wants to put his tag on that subway car. And he doesn't have like the proper focus for his child and his girlfriend. So that's why that's mainly why his girlfriend's mom hates him. And then with his father's like, you can't support. Basically, his father's very crude, but basically his father's saying, like, you can't support your family with just spray painting the buildings. Like, you got to get a real job. Like, a real man is somebody who works and supports his family. So that's Ramon's story. And then Lee's story is like, he just wants to be a breakdancer. So there's also a kind of subplot that specifically addresses Ramon. And that subplot is that there is how do I put this? it's a villainous graffiti artist named Spit. So Ramon, when he I forgot what they call it. I think it's a blast, or let's just say when he creates his art, it's like full color spectrum of a scene in New York City, or maybe it's his name, but his name is like very beautifully rendered. A lot of times he's doing, basically what he's doing is murals. Like his art is beautiful and expansive, and it's basically having a message that's attached to it. And then there are other graffiti artists that are, basically they have their artwork all over the city. But then every once in a while you see somebody has spray painted their name over that art. And there's a graffiti artist named Spit. And Spit is not a great artist, right? That nobody respects his work. So in order to get revenge, he just spray paints his name on top of everybody else's artwork. And so, people have been looking for him. They looking for him to stop him from ruining their art. It's very disrespectful. So that search for Spit is one of the like subplots of the movie. And this could have been its own movie. Like Ramon's story could have been its own movie, and Kenny's story, it could have been its own movie. And it seems like they kind of took two storylines and they tried to merge them together. But I'm not sure if it worked. Like, if you're going to do that, it has to be much better written than this movie was written. And this movie just wasn't written as well. And then there's so much like music and dancing in the movie that you would have to scale back or maybe even take out completely. But that's not something that they chose, or the movie would have had to been longer, which they probably didn't have the budget for. I like how, what's the word I'm looking for? Inventive and sly that basically Kenny's crew is. Kenny's friends, his group, his whole his friends, his friend group, because it's not just Kenny, Ramon, and Charlie, and by extension Lee. It's also like everybody that they hang around. So they find an abandoned building and they hook up power to it and they have a dance party. And it's like, it's not something that you see nowadays a whole lot of. Well, actually, you're not supposed to see it because they're stealing power from the power pole. What do you call that? The power line. They're stealing power directly from the power line, which is extraordinarily dangerous. And I don't know. It's just, maybe it's because I'm not in the group of people that would consider doing something like that. But I think I used to like hear about it, or used to see it on TV shows and movies a lot. But you don't really see that in TV shows and movies like that anymore. And I don't really hear people talking about it. But these kids are out here, they steal power, they run the power to an abandoned building, and they have a dance party. And it's just creative and inventive. And later on, when, Ramon's father is like giving him a talking to, it's like, you need to figure out a way to support your son and your girlfriend. That's what a real man does. So Ramon decides to get a job, and he makes a little bit of money. And then with that money, he's able to provide more for his child. And then he moves his mom, like his girlfriend is sick of her mom, like her mom is on her all the time. So she wants to move out. So their friends get together and they move Ramon and Ramon's girlfriend. Her name is Carmen, by the way. I keep calling her Ramon's girlfriend, even though Carmen is being played by Sandra Santiago, and she is putting in the work as an actor. So I shouldn't disrespect her just by calling her Ramon's girlfriend. So Ramon and Carmen are moved from their disparate houses to the same abandoned room or apartment that they had the house party in, or the dance party. and, basically made a little home. And to me, I like that, because I like that whole aspect of it. That was a sweet part of the movie. I liked Ramon learning from his father and taking responsibility, because he's not just, because they could have easily just made that character just super rebellious, because this movie is from the perspective of, it's targeting young people. It's targeting people in that culture, like the people it's targeting the young DJs and the graffiti artists and the break dancers. It's targeting the young people. And so this movie could have easily been Ramon just rebelling against his father. Like, no, I'm just going to do all graffiti all the time. I'm just burning my art all over the city, and there's nothing else for me to do, really. But it doesn't do that. Ramon actually learns. Like, I think Ramon probably has the most character growth. Ramon actually learns that he takes heed from what his father tells him, and even a little bit from the nagging from Carmen's mother, and he gets him a place to stay. He gets a job. He starts to take responsibility. I mean, he's still doing his artwork, but he's not going to let his passion for his art get in the way of trying to support his family. So I really like that. And that follows like the theme of the movie, like when Lee wants to hang out with his older brother, his mom is like, no, you've got to stay home and do your homework. Like, you just can't go out, and you can't stay out too late. Right. I like the lessons that this movie is overall trying to impress upon the people who are the target audience for it. Also, I think I mentioned this earlier, but there's a dance fight. Dance fights are fun. You remember that time when back in the day, you got into a beef with somebody and you settled it with dance? Those were the days, weren't they? I just like that part of the movie for the nostalgia. So catching up with Ramon, he finally figures out where this white train is going to be. I mentioned earlier that one of his passion projects is to burn a white train. And that way his artwork can be seen from one end of New York City to the other. It's something that he's dreamed of. So he gets together with Kenny. Kenny helps him with the art. And so basically he sketches out in the notebook the work that he wants to put on the train car. And then he gives Kenny the instructions so that Kenny can draw the outline, and Ramon does he fills in the colors and whatnot. So they're spraying all night. They spray one side of the train, and then they got to move and they got to spray the other side of the train. And so I remember Kenny was like, "Oh, good, we're finished." Like, no. And Ramon was like, no, we're not finished. We got to do the other side too. So they go to the other side. They start doing the other side of the train. And then they hear some spraying. And Ramon runs to the other side of the train where they had finished their work. And that's Spit, the ultimate bad guy, spraying his name on top of this work that Ramon had just completed. So Ramon is hot. So they start chasing Spit down the subway tracks. And Kenny has to run after them. So Ramon catches up with Spit and they start fighting. They start fighting and tussling on the subway track. And it's kind of messed up because this is like like they're on the platform. Like they get to the part of the subway where there's a platform. There are people on the platform waiting for the train. So there's a train coming, or there's a train expected. I shouldn't say it's coming, but there's a train. Obviously a train will be coming soon. And they're down on the subway tracks fighting. And then they're wrestling, and then they wrestle over and they hit the third rail, and both of them are electrocuted and died. So that's the end of Ramon's story. And it's super tragic because you see him is like finally taking responsibility for his family, and in a fit of passion, he gets into a fight, he gets killed. So rewinding back a little bit, you also have Kenny's story. Kenny he's trying to, like I said, be a DJ. He's trying to, and in being a DJ, he's trying to host bigger and bigger parties. So he started off with the dance club at an abandoned building, and then Charlie makes a deal, and he's able to be a DJ at this very popular club. Like, actually what happens is that the main DJ gets sick or something, doesn't show up. So Charlie's able to work a deal where Kenny can show up as like a substitute DJ. And then the club owner is so impressed with what Kenny can do that he invites Kenny to stay there full time. And so now Kenny has a proper job. And then at the same time, you have Charlie, he working some more deals. So he gets Kenny to go to this guy who has an even larger club. Like, this is more of an upscale club, and probably in Manhattan somewhere. I'm not sure where this club is at, but they're impressing upon you that this is a much more, is a much larger club. It's a much more prestigious club. And he's trying to get Kenny in that club. And they go to the place where the club is holding auditions. The owner of the club is looking at a bunch of different acts. He's looking at dancers and singers, a rock artist. He's looking for some people to entertain his guests at the club. And basically Charlie and Kenny just watched the audition. And then after the audition's over, that's when Charlie goes over to talk to this club owner about having Kenny over as a DJ for this club event. And the club owner is like, well, the auditions are over. And Charlie was like, nah, if you want to see the guy who you need as a DJ, then you got to come over to the other club tonight. And this is the main club where Charlie is currently working. So Charlie has a very aggressive negotiating tactic. It's like, my man doesn't audition. If you want to see my man Kenny, you got to go over to the club where he's working at. But that's interesting because that shows how much confidence he has in Kenny and how much confidence he has in himself to make deals. And I'm not sure if that confidence is earned or not, but the club owner actually shows up to the club to listen to Kenny and his DJ skills. And he's actually impressed. And he wants Kenny to be the DJ at his club. This is all taking place while Ramon is still alive. But then after Ramon's sudden death, now Kenny still has his job where, he has to be the DJ at this very prestigious club. He has to be the MC, the DJ. He has to throw this huge party at this club. And he does not know how he's going to orchestrate this because he's deeply affected by the death of Ramon. He's stuck. He's got like writer's block for throwing this party at this club. Kenny gets a big idea where he wants the party to be a memorial for Ramon. That's the only way he can get through actually creating this party, to be the DJ at this party. If he could turn it into a memorial for Ramon, then that's how he can do this work. Charlie is not convinced. He's like, I don't know if they're going to want a memorial for Ramon. And Kenny was like, well, we need to get Melly Mel. We need to get the Treacherous Three. We need to get all of these rappers and these hip hop artists. We get them to come to the club. And Charlie said, well, they'll probably do it, but I don't know about this memorial. It's like, Kenny was like, it's going to work. It's Kenny's turn to say, trust me, bro. Because earlier in the movie, Charlie had that trust me, bro attitude. And now it's Kenny's turn to say, trust me, bro. But Charlie has enough faith in Kenny where he goes through with Kenny's plan. And that was the end of the movie, is basically the Beat Street Breakdown, where you had actually in the movie, it's Kenny that starts off the rap for the Beat Street Breakdown. And then I think it's the second or third verse, that's when Melly Mel takes over. Even though the song is actually Melly Mel's song. And then, it goes on with the party and people shouting Ramon and all these other things. And there's a big celebration. And that's basically the end of the movie. And I didn't realize that Beat Street Breakdown was a memorial for Ramon. It's like, was I even really watching the movie the first time I watched it? It's like, I don't know why it didn't, that part of the movie wasn't impressed upon me. Like, it seems like something that I should have remembered. But it's been a long time since I watched the movie, and I think I only watched it a couple of times. So somehow that slipped through. But yeah, it's a Beat Street Breakdown was sung, and then you had people celebrating the life of Ramon. And I really liked that part of the movie. That ending was another one of my favorite parts. So that is Beat Street, the name of the beat. And now that we've talked about our favorite parts, I need to ask you, did I hit any of your favorite parts? What did I miss? Let me know. Write me a note at friends@Backflick Cinema, or you can leave a comment at the end of the YouTube video like so many of my other friends, or you could leave a message directly on the website, backflickcinema.com, or hit me up on the social media @BackflickCinema. There's so many options. So now that we've talked about our favorite parts, let's hit the top 10 trivia. So I think I got most of this from IMDb. I might have clarified some of it from some other sources, but it's mostly from IMDb. Most of the graffiti art that was displayed all throughout the film was not done by real graffiti artists. It was airbrushed by set decorators. However, 2 graffiti artists were hired as creative consultants for the film: Bill Cordero, also known as Blast, and Lonnie Wood, also known as Phase 2, who is referenced in the movie during the subway graffiti scene. About 80% of the footage in the original theatrical trailer is not included in the final cut. Examples include Ramon getting his bag ripped off while walking with Kenny and Charlie, several battle outtakes including the classroom up-rocking scene, Ramon on a set of drums, and one dancer flipping off against a wall at the Burning Spear nightclub. Several other pieces of footage were included as well, but were in freeze frame in the opening credits of the film. The trailer also includes an alternate version of the title song performed by Kool Moe Dee, which did not appear in the movie nor in the original soundtrack. So Kool Moe Dee did his version of Beat Street, and that's the one that I actually remember the strongest. I think because I watched the trailer more than I watched the movie. Because, as I mentioned before, it's Melly Mel's song, and he's the one that sings the song at the end of the movie. It was the producer's idea for the main cast to wear Kango hats and Puma sneakers all throughout the production of the film, even though many of the dancers felt it wasn't authentic. The reason that Puma shoes were so prominent is because this project was sponsored by Puma. The original soundtrack LPs have the Puma logo printed on them reading Puma as seen in Beat Street. So yeah, Puma was repping hard. And it's interesting because I remember when Puma was, I know Puma is back, so to speak, but they don't have the same cultural significance that they did back in the 1980s. So nowadays Puma is it's an upscale model that, it's, you see every once in a while, you see somebody wearing Pumas, and like they're upscale in the sense that they are perhaps overpriced. But back in the day, they were on par with like Nike and Adidas. And the funny thing about Pumas is that Puma and Adidas are actually related. They're technically brothers. You had brothers in Germany. I think it was Germany. And one brother, I think at first they were both making shoes like together. And then they had like a riff. They had an argument. So one brother stayed at his home and the other brother moved across the river to another city, and he started his own sneaker company. So The first brother, he was making a shoe called Adidas, and the brother that moved across the river, he was making a shoe called Puma. Obviously, in America, we pronounce Adidas as Adidas. Moving right along. This was the first American film to have more than one soundtrack album of music featured in the film. Originally, 3 volumes of music were planned, but Atlantic Records only released 2 of them. And the second volume was never released on compact disc. So, if you have a tape player or if you have a vinyl record, then maybe you can find the vinyl record version or the tape version of the Beat Street album. Good luck with that. Or this is the second album. The first album you could probably find the CD. None of it is streaming. Like, people have created the Beat Street soundtrack playlist on YouTube Music, but the album doesn't seem to be available. At least not available for streaming. Spit was based on a real-life graffiti artist named Cap MPC, who was featured in the documentary Star Wars from 1983. Cap would deface other graffiti artists' work by painting his name over him, or over them, over the other artwork. So Cap is a bad person. The MPAA originally rated this film R due to the use of the F word. The rating was changed to PG on appeal. The release predates the PG-13 rating by a month, which is the rating this movie would have received or likely gotten without any issues. Guy Davis is the son of actors Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis. And as I mentioned earlier, Rae Dawn Chong is the daughter of actor Tommy Chong. Crazy Legs, a breakdancer, said that during the filming of the battle scene at the Roxy, he wanted to battle to Jimmy Castor's song, It Just Begun. But he was disappointed to find that the crews were going to battle to a record called Breaker's Revenge because of rights issues. And I think Breaker's Revenge was written for this movie. Kadeem Hardison, from A Different World fame, is credited as high school student in the film. His shots were cut completely along with the classroom up-rocking battle scene. Last bit of trivia. Vin Diesel admitted on Jimmy Kimmel that he was an extra in the movie. I don't remember seeing Vin Diesel, and I probably wouldn't recognize him because it was probably at a time when Vin Diesel had hair. So that's it for the trivia. Let's see what the critics thought. The critics' score is 57%, so audience score is 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, and IMDb has it at 6.5 out of 10. Gene Siskel from the Chicago Tribune wrote, an upbeat, thoroughly entertaining street film about an entertainment revolution in the depressed South Bronx featuring breakdancing, graffiti art, and record mixing. A Black and Puerto Rican version of Saturday Night Fever. That is surprisingly high praise from Gene Siskel. I would never have expected him to praise this film as such. There is an uncredited review from TV Guide magazine in which they wrote, this energetic hip-hop musical barely supplements the large-scale musical numbers with its cliched plot, but it does capture a sense of the breakdancing craze and is more entertaining than most of the films made to cash in on that trend. That was well thought out. Rita Kempley from the Washington Post wrote, the music is electric on Beat Street, a good-natured, emotional movie where morals are as sound as they were in the Mom in the Kitchen's dad insurance sitcoms of the 50s and 60s. Okay, I'll take that. I'm not exactly sure what the Mom in the Kitchen, Dad's Insurance type of sitcom is, but I'll take their word for it. And Trevor Johnston of Time Out London wrote, pretty bland, but you have to admit co-producer Belafonte had an eye for talent, spotlighting hip-hop legends in the making, African Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, the Rocksteady Crew, and Grandmaster Melly Mel and the Furious Five. And on that, I would have to agree. Finally, Beat Street is, as of this recording, available on Prime Video, Pluto TV, and Tubi. That's it for our conversation about this movie. Join me next time as we continue Black Cinema on Black Cinema Month. As I mentioned, this is one of the 4 films that I had in mind for this month, even though I missed the first week. So the 4th film will be featured in March, because I will not be deterred. The next movie that is another that I hadn't seen in a long time, but it had a lot of cultural significance. That movie is Soul Food. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, and sometimes Twitter at Backlook Cinema. Please contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at the new email, friends@backlookcinema.com. Please rate and review on your favorite podcast app. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like or subscribe or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. One last time, if you like this show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe, share a movie from yesteryear with your family, hug your loved ones, and if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.